All right, and welcome back to the Sense of Life podcast. I'm Joe,
And I'm Cody.
and today we are talking about Nicholas Winding Refn's Pusher trilogy. Some of the last movies of his that I have yet to see until now.
Yeah, I think all we have left is Bleeder and Too Old to Die Young,
Yeah,
which we keep threatening to watch and then not watching.
exactly. Um, Pusher. The first one was Refn's first. It was his directorial debut, I do
Yeah,
believe. And then he did Bleeder and Fear X
yes.
um, in 1999 and 2003. And those movies being financial flops, or at the very least Fear X, which is I thought it was a pretty good movie overall,
Pretty
but
good.
financially did not do well. And Refn actually owned his own like production company or something like that.
Yeah, and
Um,
it went bankrupt.
and so the story goes that there's some quote from Refn about this that about money being a great motivator for writing because
Yeah,
he was in the shit because of his company going under, and he followed that up immediately with Pusher 2 and then Pusher 3 the year after that. So
yeah, and
2004 and
I
2005.
I believe those basically saved the production company.
Something along those lines. Yeah, they
Yeah,
I think they both performed really well. To my understanding, Pusher was kind of like the first one at least was kind of like what put him on the map in Denmark, and then like Pusher 2 and 3 kind of being sequels to this movie he was known for after his other ones didn't do so well. Uh, was the smart move to do, because I mean, look at what he's doing now.
yeah, it almost is like a disproving the idea that like making art for money is a bad thing.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact quote, but he did say something along the lines of money being a great motivator for writing, just because you really need it, so you better
Yeah,
crank out
it's
some gold.
yeah, it's like um having to think of like filmmaking from their perspective of a production uh, company as a business owner
Hmm.
and as a filmmaker. So it's a I mean that's basically the world we live in now. Like
Right.
everyone has to do that.
That's actually something he brought up when he was talking to Hideo Kojima once about how they both are creators and businessmen, in that they both
Right.
own their respective companies that make the art that they create, which
Uh,
puts them in a pretty interesting position.
uh, Based position, some might
Yeah.
say.
But yeah, uh, I wasn't sure what to expect from
Right.
the trilogy, because I mean I watched Fear X, and stylistically you can see the beginnings of like what Refn is really known for, like Bronson onward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I was like, I wonder if his earliest work will be the same, and uh, in
It's
some
not, but it is.
in some ways it was, and in some ways it wasn't.
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised. I really liked, especially the second movie. I really liked the second one.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Pusher Two was the strongest.
Yeah. So I guess we should start with the first Pusher, if you
Yeah.
want to take the lead on that one.
Sure. Okay, so first Pusher, it is a um, basically like a crime thriller. All of these really are kind of in that crime drama, crime thriller type thing. Um, it follows Frank for a week, and this is actually part of the structure of the film. It's told on over different days, um, which feels like a very like first feature thing to do. Not that
Yeah.
that's good or bad, just that seems like someone who's new would think of. and it kind of depicts him, and a lot of these are kind of similar structure of the person starting out kind of bad, getting worse, but also learning something.
Yeah.
And they all kind of follow this career, this like trajectory, but they follow different characters. And they do this cool thing at the beginning, because I've been rewatching Teen Titans. This is what made me think of it. It's like,
I know exactly what you're gonna say.
yeah. Every movie opens with like this like TV show opening of like all the characters that are in the movie, and they're like shot in this like hard shadow in a spotlight or something. It's kind of retarded, but it's cool.
It was cool as hell. I like how he kept it consistent through all three movies, that all of them started with that.
Yeah, and the song that plays over it is the same song that plays over and over on the DVD for the first Pusher, which I had playing for a while for some reason. It's like,
yeah.
and it just went over and over, and I was almost getting sick of it.
Yeah.
So he's indebted to his supplier Milo, and I guess the three main characters here are Frank for the first movie, Tawny, who's introduced in the first movie but does not have a main role until the second movie, and Milo, or Milo, I
sure
guess.
it's Milo, I think, but yeah.
Milo. Frank, played by someone Danish.
Yeah, Mads Mikkelsen plays is Tawny. Yeah,
yeah, with respect on his head, like you texted me about, which was funny.
That was the. I'm pretty sure that the first Pusher is Mads Mikkelsen's like first film role, if I'm not mistaken, or like one of his really early ones. And
it says that it launched both Refn's and Mads Mikkelsen's careers, so I think you're right.
Yeah, and it's so jarring seeing Mads Mikkelsen young, bald, and with respect tattooed on the back of his head.
Yeah.
Very strange.
Yeah, so it's Frank, he's this low-level drug dealer, and heads to a heroin deal with Tawny, and they sell some of the product, but then they get interrupted by police, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so he leaves Tawny behind in his car, and then he hops in the car with like the guys he's going to make the deal with, and then the cops like pull out in the intersection, and he just bolts.
Yeah.
Which was a really nice, a really really funny scene.
And it plays this weird like punk rock music just over when he's running.
Yeah,
pretty funny.
It reminded me of like in Left 4 Dead 2 when there's like when the game decides to send a horde of zombies against you, it'll occasionally, like when it does that, there's like a song that will play.
Yeah,
that game uses a lot of like musical cues for things, and it gave me that kind of vibe. That was what that scene made me think of.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, he ends up owing money to Milo, who is actually the main character of the third movie.
Yes,
and he's played by a
Zlatko Burik.
Yeah, Zlatko Burik. He's
a Serbian drug lord.
Yeah. The actor is not not the actor. The character is not the actor. The actor is not a Serbian drug lord.
He just plays one on TV.
Yeah, exactly.
So, one thing about all three movies that I really liked was how it kind of portrays this kind of low level like criminal underworld as just kind of pathetic.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like not low stakes, but it's like such a high risk for such a low reward. that's happening all the time.
Right. It's an incredibly dangerous world for you to essentially scrape by, even on the best of
Yeah,
days.
and you're basically constantly looking over your shoulder,
Yeah.
and you barely make any money. The first one opens with, or is this the second one when there's like the paternity test? Like I'm getting them confused in my head.
That's the second one.
Okay, so forget that. But there's just so many like random things even for Milo. Like so, even for actually, Milo's doing pretty well comparatively, but I mean, even with how well he's doing, it's
Right.
like
This was kind of a thought that I had earlier when I was talking to Skylar about the three movies, which basically
friend of the pod, Skylar.
Yeah. If Skylar's listening, he probably isn't, but hello. But the point that I kind of was thinking is that like each of these movies kind of shows that at all levels of this criminal underworld, is a guy that is scared and one move away from being dead.
Yes, dead, imprisoned, or like having to run away as far as they can.
Right, exactly. And it's like it's the same for the dealers as it is for the suppliers. And I don't even know what you would call Tawny. He's not even a dealer. He's not like, he's just kind of like a
pusher, one might say.
well, he's not. He isn't like he isn't like Milo, who is like a like big supplier, and he's not like Frank, who was like, you know, an actual dealer. He's just kind of there.
Yeah,
he's just kind of around. And funnily enough, he's actually the most compelling character out of the three I found.
Milo or
Tawny, who is he was the most compelling character because I found it interesting that just kind of a nitwit background character in the first movie made a pretty compelling protagonist for the second movie.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I liked that.
So he evades the police, and it ends in, so he's running around Copenhagen, which is where all of this takes place. And he ends up in this river, Frank, and he throws out all the heroin and just kind of like spites the police, and is like, they're like, come out of the water, and he's like, no, come and get me. And they just go in and drag him out, just kind of annoyed. It was one of those like, why are you making this stand here kind of moments. Like what are you gonna do, like swim away or whatever? Right. There was just so many, like, I think these movies work as almost like a really good after school special for people like, yeah, don't get involved in criminal drug trafficking. It's not even worth it financially. Yeah. You're just doing slightly better than like the McDonald's worker down the street.
Right, except the McDonald's worker doesn't have to run for his life or from the police, and isn't having threats of like having his hand burned or like fucking all this other bullshit going on.
Yeah.
It's just like a bunch of lowlifes who just want to do drugs and make like a quick buck, but they're all like on the verge of being broke.
Yeah, so the quick buck they make is
immediately either given
like
to
nothing.
Someone. Like there's like layers of debt in Pusher, where it's like he eventually gets let go. The police let him go because he dumped all the heroin in the lake or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So they didn't actually get anything off of him. And he goes to Milo and he tells him like, yeah, I was caught by the police and I lost all the heroin, and he just doesn't believe him because like, why would you believe a guy who owes you a shitload of money?
Yeah.
The police picked me up, but they let me go. But I didn't tell them anything. And it's like, no, that just doesn't sound real, but that actually is what happened.
Yeah.
But in the process of being in police custody, they tell him that Tawny had uh signed some sort of confession that they were on their way there to make a like a drug deal or whatever. And
Yeah, it
it,
was like a prisoner's dilemma kind of thing.
yeah, as soon as he as as soon as he tells Milo, what happened, he just goes straight to the bar where Tawny's hanging out and then just beats him with a baseball bat
Yeah.
to what at the time I would have assumed would have been like his death, because I don't know it.
Right.
And then the second movie, it's just like, oh, he lived and he's got like scars on his head from being beat mercilessly with a bat.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like they're trying to extract this money from Frank because he took the heroin from Milo without paying for it. And Milo was like, well, you can just pay me back once you sell it. But then once it was all gone, it was like, well, you can't sell it now. And
Yeah.
it's like Frank is leading Milo's right-hand man around town to different people that owe him money.
Yep.
Yeah. And up to this point in the movie, I was like, okay, this is pretty interesting. I'm enjoying this. And then they get to this guy. Yeah, and then they get to this guy that owes Frank money.
Yeah.
And it's like this dude that's just like a drug addict or whatever, and he they're basically saying like he can't pay them back, so they're like, all right, well, you're just going to rob a bank for us, and they like give him a shotgun. They're like, you're gonna rob this bank for us, and Frank is like, he can't rob a bank, like he's just a fucking idiot junkie, like he's not gonna be able to do that. And then
while they're arguing,
while they're arguing, the junkie just takes the shotgun and, seeing that there's no way out of this situation, fucking kills himself right in front of both of them. Like
Kurt Cobain style.
Just blows his brains out. It was like, holy shit. That was a shock to the system.
Fuck. When did Kurt Cobain kill himself? This movie came out in 96.
Was that 94?
They literally did Kurt Cobain death 2 years after Kurt Cobain killed himself.
Famous for inventing shooting yourself in the head with a shotgun. Kurt Cobain.
Right, yeah. but I mean, it even shows like...
This is getting demonetized. Well, not that we're monetized anyway.
Yeah,
but it's going to get that warning.
Famously monetized channel Sense of Life.
Yeah. It's going to get that warning at the beginning that's like, this video deals with topics of self-harm.
Yeah. Well, I think that's only if we put it in the title.
Maybe. I don't know.
We'll see. It'd be funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, it shows like the fucking grip, like brain matter go on the back of the wall, which is what made me think of Kurt Cobain.
It was crazy. Like, as I said, it was like a shock to the system, because I was like, okay, this movie's pretty good, and then that happens, and you're like, holy shit.
I even think when I was watching it, I had like slightly lost attention for a sec, and then boom, and I was like, what the fuck? And I had to like go back like 30 seconds, like, what, did I miss something? And it was like, no, the guy just killed himself. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, as the days go on throughout the film's runtime, and it's like segmented in chapters of like the days of the week, he gets like more and more desperate to get the money to pay off Milo, and he's like setting up another drug deal, and those guys try to rip him off. They like give him
baking soda.
What was it? There was
baking
a point.
Soda.
Yeah, they gave him baking soda, but there was also a bag of drugs that he was trying to rip. I think he was trying to rip someone off as well, because there was like a second bag that had like oh shit, I can't remember what it was. It was some other sort of powder that was not drugs. It wasn't baking soda, because like he tries to give one bag to the guy, to the right hand man of Milo, and he's just like, this is whatever, and he's just like, oh, okay, well, sorry, that was for something else. And then he gives him the other bag, and he's like, are you kidding? This is baking powder. And
maybe it was like talcum powder or something. I don't know.
I couldn't tell you. I can't remember that specific detail, but
Yeah.
it gets to the point where like this is it his girlfriend?
Um.
Uh, she was some sort of like prostitute or whatever, but I think she was also his girlfriend.
Yeah. She was okay. Yeah. I keep mixing two and one together in my head.
Right. You were thinking
uh,
of the of Tawny's like I don't even know if that was his
baby
girlfriend. It was
mama,
just
basically.
the woman that has his child.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
But yeah, the one with like the pixie cut or whatever. That
yeah,
I think she is a prostitute, but like, they're kind of together, kind of not,
yeah,
and she's kind of like tagging along with him in this like Chinatown way. But you probably don't understand that reference. So,
I don't.
um, we'll have to watch Chinatown. It's really good.
Yeah, yeah.
So she ends up getting kind of pushed out of the picture at one point because the right hand man, I think, finally had enough with Frank's shit, and like they corner him in this car. Trying to remember the exact details. I think this is when he tries to give him the baking soda. He doesn't realize it's baking soda, right? Am I
I
remembering this
I
correctly?
believe so. Uh,
Yeah.
well, you know what it was? It was after he. It was after he tried to steal money from some guy that he buys cocaine from. It was like at a gym. Do you remember that part where like he goes into the gym and he acts as if he's going to buy drugs from the guy, and he follows the guy to his locker, and then he pulls a gun out and he takes the guy's
Right.
money
Yeah.
and his drugs, and then
Yeah.
as he's
Okay.
leaving the gym, the the guy that he just robbed tells all the other buff guys at the gym, it's like he just fucking took my money.
Yeah.
And at that point, he's captured, and they uh, they are like in the process of torturing him, uh, and he like grabs a gun, does he not?
Oh,
In
he already
his
had a gun, right?
frantic attempt to escape being tortured, he like pulls out a gun and shoots one
Right. Yeah.
guy.
They take him back to Milo's like safe house or whatever. They're
Yeah,
torturing him, and he is able to get a hold of the gun, shoots the guy in the leg, and bolts.
yeah, and at that point he's kind of just like he's given up on trying to pay them back, because you can't really. I mean, at that point, once you've shot one of them, it's kind of,
Yeah.
there's no goodwill coming back from that. So
And there's this like this happens a little bit earlier, but there's this constant like refrain, like you talked about, like just layers and layers of debt in this whole trilogy. Like he hands over his car that he thinks is going to be this like certain value, and it's actually less because everything is just kind of less value than you think it is.
yeah,
And then the same thing happens to Milo in the third one with the watch.
right.
Like,
Yeah, there's just debt and owing people favors and getting freebies that just come back to bite you in the ass like over and over again.
yeah,
Um, but by the end of the movie, he's taking his girlfriend, and they're just going to like run away to like Spain or something, and um, they go into this club, and this is like the first kind of, obviously since it's Refn's first movie, but it's like you see the DNA of like Refn's experimentation with like really bright colors and stuff in his later movies with
yeah,
the lighting in the club.
yeah.
Um, I thought that was pretty neat. And then Milo calls him, and they make a deal about how much money Frank can give him like at that exact moment. And he calls off running away with his girlfriend to Spain, and she just fucking she grabs all the money out of his pocket and just bolts.
Yeah.
I was
There's a
like,
lot of grabbing things and bolting in this movie.
yeah, I was like, oh, you start to feel bad for him near the end because you're just
Yeah,
like, I
yeah.
mean, obviously, he's just some like criminal that is robbing people and selling drugs that ruin people's lives, but
Yeah, I mean, he's like all of these characters are kind of the architect of their own demise, but Frank is just kind of the most. You're just kind of like, damn.
he gets so close and then it's just ripped away.
Yeah,
What compelled her to randomly steal like a couple $1,000s from him and just run away? Uh, Beyond me. Probably drugs. I have no idea. But he
I think she was just pissed
she was
and took
done
his
with his
money.
shit because because he was going to run off to Spain with her, and it's like never mind, we're not going. Uh, and she like bolts out of the club, and he chases her, and she just hops in a car. I don't even know whose car it was she hopped in. Like she just hops in a car, and they just drive away.
I think it was just a cab or something.
Maybe.
And um, and then he winds up back in the hands of Milo and his men, and um,
No, he doesn't.
he does.
No, after she drives off with the money, the last shot of the movie is him just like standing on the side of the road, and he's like,
Oh yeah, it just ends, doesn't it?
yeah, it just ends. He's like trying to catch his breath, and he's just standing there, and it just flashes images of uh the most interesting one to me was Milo sitting in a chair and his right hand man just laying out plastic on the floor.
Yeah.
It was like they had no intent of actually, they had no intent of actually accepting this money from Frank. Like as soon as he came there to give them the money, they were just going to kill him and like wrap him up in plastic.
Yeah.
Actually,
Which is probably what they end up doing.
right, but I don't think he goes back to. He doesn't go back to them because in the second movie, there's a point where Tawny actually meets Milo, and then Milo directly asks him if he's seen Frank, and he says no. So Frank, like, I guess he just fled Denmark as he was going to, but this time without the several $1,000s.
Yeah.
Probably. But yeah, that was they kind of leave it ambiguous on purpose, but
yeah. It's you can definitely tell the, if not quality, just like Refn's. By the time we get to 2 and 3, you can feel that Refn's much more confident as a filmmaker by those two.
Definitely.
The first one is kind of like fidgety and a little bit unfocused. I think the first one's the weakest of the three. But
honestly,
it's not bad.
I do agree. I think it would be definitely the weakest one of the three, but I don't think it was a bad movie at all. I had a lot of fun with it.
It's the kind of first movie you want, where you're it's like, oh yeah, okay, that's pretty good. Let's see what you can do next. So you have somewhere to go, because a lot of times you'll like make a Citizen Kane and then you can't follow up on it.
Yeah. So that's Pusher 1.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, Pusher 2 was definitely my favorite of the trilogy. It follows
and this tends to be people's favorite from what I've heard of this trilogy. And sometimes it's like it's got like 100% of Rotten Tomatoes, and it's some people call it like their favorite Refn movie. I think that's not quite right, but that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure Mads won an award for.
I think the first one premiered at Cannes, and so he's always been like a critical darling, which I think maybe that's part of the reason some have always been haters, because people that are successful tend to get attacked.
Yeah, personally, I really like Mads Mikkelsen, so we'll just leave it.
Yeah, he's great.
He's pretty great.
And there's an alternative like subtitle for 2 and 3. This one is With Blood on My Hands.
Yeah, Pusher 2, with blood on my hands. Uh,
Yeah.
the second movie, I don't know if we want to be as kind of we've been going for like half an hour here, and we're only on the second movie. Um,
I mean, we'll
see
go
what
until we're
happens.
done.
Yeah. The second movie follows Mad's character, who was only in like the first third of the first movie, and
Yeah. Yeah.
it starts. He's like just getting out of prison, and he's kind of getting like this moral lesson from, I think it's like another inmate at the prison that he owes money to for protecting him while he was in jail.
Right.
Where he basically tells him like that this kind of ties into what I had thought about the kind of connecting thread of all three movies, where the guy that's telling him this story about how he got in jail, where like um he was like making a deal, and where he owed money to someone. I honestly can't remember exactly what the exact premise of it was, but it was like he was meeting these people and he was scared shitless of them.
Yeah.
And as soon as they pulled up in their car, he just pulled out a gun and started shooting at their car. And he didn't hit any of them with the bullets. He hit the gas tank of their car and like it blew up and
Right. Yeah.
incinerated the two guys in the back seat, and the two guys in the front seat were like lit on fire and screaming. He compared it to pigs being slaughtered, which I
Yeah.
guess to tie that into Copenhagen Cowboy if you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he has this moment of realization that like the people that he was like scared shitless of were just like him. They were,
Yeah.
regardless of their status within this criminal underworld, they were exactly like him.
Yeah.
And hearing them scream as they died, like reminded him of this, and he basically tells Tawny that like that he is also just like him. He just hasn't conquered his fear. And I guess that's kind of what the movie is about.
Yeah.
Because the sort of setup for Pusher 2 is that Tawny, his father runs like this kind of gang, I guess, that like they steal cars and I don't know, they'll probably like scrap other cars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and his father, everyone calls him the Duke in the movie,
Yeah.
and he's like trying to initially the premise is really low stakes compared to the first one, because in the first one it's like he owes Milo 50,000 Danish kroner or whatever their currency is. And
Yeah.
then he owes him an additional 180,000 after he loses the heroin during the drug bust. But
Right.
this movie starts off with Mads owing this guy in jail $500 of protection money. Like it's nothing compared to the stakes of the first movie.
Right. Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of a neat like twist on the original, is like the much lower stakes, more personal story of Tawny in the second one.
Yeah. It continues the um, trend of direct sequels being kind of lower stakes generally and more about character
Yeah.
historically.
Like,
Not always, but um so Tawny steals a Ferrari.
yeah, a pretty stupid thing to steal for
Yeah,
people that like flip cars, because it's like
and
that's a
he
pretty
gets
high profile.
reprimanded.
Yeah, he gets reprimanded for it immediately. Like that's a pretty high profile car to be stealing, for people that flip stolen vehicles. Like you only, I think
Yeah,
they say it in the movie. It's like you only steal a Ferrari if you have an order for a Ferrari.
yeah.
Uh,
It's he basically does it as like a bragging right because he's trying to impress his father. He's got daddy issues. His father's like disappointed in him. His father's like a criminal, as we figure out. Although I don't think it's entirely clear when the movie starts that he's like operating a criminal organization. I think it's revealed later. That's how I understood it. Maybe I'm an idiot. And so he has him get rid of the Ferrari, basically.
Yeah.
And he ends up meeting up with his friend Zero, I think is the name. O.
No, it's definitely one of those Danish, again, those Scandinavian alterations of the O character. I don't know how you pronounce it. It's the O with the diagonal slash through it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna call him Zero.
Sure. It's wrong, but we'll go with it.
Yeah. So he's hanging out with him and Zero's girlfriend, who works at this, like, is it like a hair salon?
I have no idea what it was. It was just some like random store.
Yeah, and she works there. They end up stealing money from it, even though she had just like helped someone else steal money the week before.
Yeah, just very stupid people.
Everyone's just a fucking idiot. Serious. But like, you love them anyway. But you're just like, what were you thinking? Like,
yeah,
no plan that you've thought of here has been good. And so he finds out there's this woman that he slept with years back, or I guess months back, before he went to jail.
Yeah.
That had his baby, supposedly. And there's this, like, drama of whether he's going to take this paternity test, which he never really does, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, he never actually does take the test, and, like, the funny thing is that, like, the first conversation you see between him and this woman that claims that this kid is his is instantaneously about how she wants him to give her, like, $2,500 or something.
Yeah.
Just straight to the point, give me money.
Just continuing this, like, ever-present theme of just, like, constant debt, constantly owing money to people. And this time there's, like, actual stakes here because there's a kid involved.
Mm-hmm.
And
another kind of point to make about Tawny and his father, the Duke, is that the Duke also has a young son in this movie as well.
Right, yeah.
And
he becomes kind of
it's like a
player.
It's interesting because he actually gives a shit about that son, who is like a small child, but he doesn't care at all about Tawny. And this kind of becomes like a thing later on in the movie with Tawny and his conflict with his father about the fact that his father just thinks he's a piece of shit and he like doesn't care about him at all. It kind of all starts with there's like this pimp character that Tawny knows, who is like an associate of his father's like criminal group.
Yeah.
His character's name is honestly Kurt the Cunt.
Yeah.
Which I don't even, like, they just call him that. There's the Duke and there's the Cunt, like weird fucking character names in this movie.
Yeah, I think at some point they're like, kill the cunt.
Yeah. And he's Tawny is basically just hanging around his dad's like garage and stuff, just to try and keep up appearances and make money, and kind of try and maybe not mend his relationship with his dad, but at the very least like get some sort of respect from him so that he can earn some money from his business and be considered trustworthy.
Right.
But Kurt like invites him to his apartment. I think he says he was going to give him like some heroin or something, or like cocaine.
Yeah, I think it's a deal for some heroin.
Yeah, and he goes over to his apartment, and this is like the Milo cameo in the movie. He's only in the movie for that one scene, but it was like, oh, Kurt is doing this deal with he's doing this deal with Milo, and Milo shows up, and he has the wrong kind of drugs. Right? He doesn't give him what he asked for. I can't remember what he wanted initially.
Yeah, I don't remember either. I'm finding that it's hard to keep these three movies straight.
Oh, the third one was different enough that I it's pretty clear.
Well,
the
yeah,
first two
true.
were a
Yeah,
bit
these
more,
first two are fairly similar.
bit more similar, yeah. But yeah, he basically he gives him the money for the drugs, and he takes the drugs, and then they hear a knock at the door, and
Yeah.
Kurt immediately panics and dumps all the drugs down his toilet.
Oh, right, yeah.
And it's just revealed to be one of Milo's guys showing up with food.
Yeah.
He's like, I brought food, and then Milo's like, oh, you want to eat? And then Kurt's just like, I just dumped all the drugs down the toilet. Give me my money back. And he's like, that was your mistake, not mine. You paid me for it. I'm keeping the money. And like this, the whole like conflict after that moment is that Kurt, because he invited Tawny to his apartment, is trying to like associate Tawny with the deal that happened and make the fact that now he owes money to people. Same kind of situation that the first movie had, where Frank dumps the heroin in the river and ends up owing money to Milo. This guy paid Milo, but then dumped the drugs, but then owed money to someone else because the money he used to pay for the drugs to make money was not his money. Like, there's just, as you said, layers of debt and owing people that just becomes this like huge clusterfuck. And
just always just like people making the stupidest fucking decision.
Right, and literally because Tawny was in the room when this happened, the debt is like passed on to him because this Kurt guy just disappears.
Yeah.
He disappears after being shot in the arm. Because they come up with this idiotic scheme to make it seem as though they got robbed
by some like Muslims.
Yeah, I won't use the term that they used in the subtitles, but they used some pretty derogatory terms for Arabs. So he's like, they buy a gun using Kurt's.
They call them Tusken Raiders.
Yeah, exactly. And he buys a gun from this Arab guy, Muhammad, using Kurt's gold necklace as like payment, and then he shoots Kurt in the arm with the gun, and then he just chucks it in the same field that he shot him.
Yeah,
where there were like sheep in the field. It was like, I think, like if farmers are bringing their sheep to like graze there, that gun's probably going to be found sooner or later. Like, he probably should have thrown that somewhere else or buried it. But, you know, poor decisions being made all around.
And it's been fired once, and there's definitely like a bullet and a casing in that field. Nobody in this series, besides like Milo, and even he makes some really
questionable
decisions.
Yeah.
Nobody is like intelligent.
Nobody,
which is.
Yeah, I mean, thank God criminals aren't intelligent. This movie presents criminals as absolute idiots. And
yeah, I think it kind of points to like your whole theory that Refn's actually a romantic.
Yeah.
In that he like the criminals are just portrayed as like complete bumbling morons. And it's like, why would you ever do this?
Yeah. The funny thing is he shoots Kurt in the arm at like point blank range, so there would be like gunpowder residue and like probably even the guy's blood on the end of the gun, like from how close he shot him. So it's like, if you just chuck that in the field, like, and someone finds it, they're gonna know who, like, they're gonna it's just they're gonna know it was used to shoot someone.
Was this the gun that like he gets from like the Arab guy?
Yeah, yeah, and
And
they pay for it with Kurt's gold necklace.
yeah, and he's not able to get the one with like the serial number filed off.
Yeah,
He has to get the one with the serial number.
right. He couldn't even get a gun that was like untraceable. He had to buy one that was traceable.
A traceable gun shot at point blank range, left in the field with the shell and the bullet in the same field.
Just unbelievable. And the entire thing just falls apart. And
yeah, I mean, it's like a fucking the ending of Clue, ending of a game of Clue. It's
the best part is once they realized that plan was stupid and wouldn't work. It's like after like a wedding reception for we're calling him Zero. His name is Danish O with a slash through it.
Yeah.
I'm not going
Zero
to
hero.
yeah. That guy, it's like that guy's wedding or something, and the Duke is like delivering a speech at the wedding about how he sees this guy like a son to him because he's been an associate of his for a while and he considers him very trustworthy. And then he literally uses this opportunity at at the wedding reception to shit talk his son, his actual son. He's like, "Oh yeah, he's useless. He's a piece of shit. Maybe he could be more like you someday." And it's just like, God damn, you're an asshole. Like, be a criminal, but don't be a fucking asshole. God damn. And after like in the middle of this wedding reception, Tawny and Kurt go to Kurt's apartment, and they're going to like smash everything in his apartment to make it look like the Arabs came back and like attacked his apartment, or like I don't know what the fuck the implication is here, like that they stole all of his valuables or something, so he can't pay back the Duke or something. Just very strange plan, and another very stupid idea by like an idiotic criminal. And
before that, like, it's kind of important for later in the movie.
Yes.
The reason he leaves the party is because he embarrasses himself because he ends up attacking Charlotte, the mother of his child, because she's basically neglecting the kid to snort coke in the party, and he's like telling her to take the kid home and like take care of him, and she's just like, "Fuck you, hate you." Whatever, and then he like goes in to like choke her and shit. It gets wild, so he gets kicked out.
Yeah, that was an interesting scene because like the entire movie you kind of see him just being like kind of like a low life junkie idiot who's just like doing drugs, and you know, he when he's at Kurt's place when they make the deal with Milo, he's like don't go in my mini bar, and he specifically is going through his mini bar as he's saying not to, and he's just drinking all these little bottles of booze. Like he's just a deadbeat, and but then he even it gets to the point where even he's just like, Jesus Christ, woman, take care of your child. Like you've just got your kid laying on the floor over there while you're snorting coke. Like, are you? He's like, you're a piece of shit. And they end up going to Kurt's apartment again, and Kurt tells him to, you know, start smashing stuff with a baseball bat, and probably one of the funniest parts of the movie when he starts trying to break the TV with the with the bat, and it's just bouncing off of the screen, and it's like
the funniest noise.
back in the day when a CRT television was just like the strongest piece of fucking tempered glass you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah, there's so many like it's this type of like grounded realism in these movies of like how in like a typical like noir crime thing everything would work out, but this is like showing what it actually looks like to try and do something, and it's just kind of pathetic and annoying.
Yeah.
And you look like a loser.
Yep.
It's really great.
They're just kind of like smashing stuff in the dude's apartment, and this woman just shows up, and she's like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And then fucking Kurt just smacks her in the back of the head with a baseball bat, and then Tawny's like, what the fuck are you doing? He's like, I'm gonna kill her. It'll make it look more convincing. And he's like, I'm leaving now. Goodbye. And he like hops out the window.
Yeah.
He hops out the window. He's like, I'm out of here. And in I don't know why this is a thing that like this happens in the first movie. As soon as Frank owes money to Milo, and I couldn't imagine being in the situation where I have to volitionally approach a dangerous criminal and inform them that I don't have their money. Like,
yeah,
Tawny immediately goes back to the reception where the Duke is, and then lies to his face that he doesn't know where Kurt is. It's like, dude, just be a rat. Just be a rat and just tell him where he is. You're gonna get yourself killed.
Yeah.
I suppose there is actually a pretty significant plot point we did skip over, which is a scene where Tawny goes to the apartment building where his mother lives at, and tries to, like, he presses the button on like the wall to like that calls the landline in the apartment, so that he can be like buzzed in, and he tries to buzz into the apartment where his mom lives, and it's revealed to him that by the new tenant there that his mom died like 7 or 8 months ago while he was in jail, and he he was not there when it happened, obviously, because he was in jail. But and no one bothered to tell him. That was a pretty messed up scene as well. You could see the.
How did that happen? I'm having a hard time remembering. I think I remember remembering a scene in the first one of the mom.
No, there's no. There is a mom in the first one, yeah, where he visits.
Which is also a really like depressing scene where he literally has to ask his mom for money and it's not enough.
Yeah, his mom can give him like 600, I think.
He was like 6,000, I think.
Oh, okay, right, yeah, it was 6,000, but he needed like 200. He needed 180 plus 50,000, so it was like he needed a lot more than 6. And it's like, at that point, why would you even take that from your mom? You know, like, you're taking like this little bit of money she has that isn't even remotely close to what you need to pay off these criminals, and you're gonna take it anyway. It was like, oh, that was just a depressing scene. But no, there is a scene in Pusher 2 where he goes to like it's a very short scene where he goes to the apartment building where his mom lives, and it's just revealed to him that she died. He just kind of walks away. But like,
okay, yeah, I think I do remember that now.
Near the end of the second movie, after he goes back to talk to the Duke, he the Duke is like, oh, we're gonna go find Kurt. Here, you're coming with us. And like as they're driving there, the facade is kind of dropped, and it's like, Tawny, you owe us the money that that Kurt did, because he's gone now or whatever. And they kind of work out this deal where the woman that the Duke had a child with, that is his current child, is like threatening to call the police on him, and she's trying to get full custody of the child, and he does not want to give up the child, so he pays Tawny to go and kill her. And he goes to, she works at like some sort of like whorehouse. Brothel, yeah, that's the more politically correct term.
I don't know how politically correct brothel is, but yeah.
I think it's better than whorehouse.
Fair.
But he goes there, and he can't do it. Like, he couldn't bring himself to kill her.
Sex worker union, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, he can't go through with a murder, and he ends up going back to the Duke, and he just basically tells him, yeah, she's not dead. I didn't kill her.
Yeah, and then
and he finally like he calls him basically an idiot again, and Toddy just snaps and stabs him to death
Yeah,
with something that he grabs. I think it's like a screwdriver or something.
yeah. It was like it gets to the point where his dad is just literally just screaming at him like, "You mean nothing to me. You've never meant anything to me. You never meant anything
Yeah,
to me, rather." And
yeah,
all this other shit. And then Tawny just kind of snaps and stabs him to death.
yeah,
And he walks back to his friend's apartment where his friend and his friend's wife and the mother of his child is supposed to be there, but she's not.
Well, actually, she is. He was looking for his friend, but he's not there. He just finds
Oh, right. Yes,
he
he was looking
finds
for his
both the
friend.
women just getting high,
Hmm.
and they he he's just sitting there, and they get mad at him for something. They leave the room, leave the kid unattended, and he like has this moment, and I think he's about to walk out, and then he goes back,
Right.
grabs the kid, and leaves, gets on a bus to take him and the kid to basically have a better life, I guess.
Yeah. The movie ends on a much more hopeful note, a complete inversion of the first movie,
Yeah.
where uh, it's a more. I found that the second movie had a lot more of like a consistently like just miserable tone to it, except
Yeah.
for the end, which was quite. I won't say uplifting because Tawny is not exactly the greatest role model, but he seems to be the ending would indicate that he is uh, redirecting the path of his life and taking up responsibility for this child that is his and taking it away from just a drug addict mother.
Yeah.
Um, and I suppose if we were to return to the thematic element from the beginning of the guy saying that he had not conquered his fear, I do believe the fear um, was more so a manifestation of his insecurity because of the lack of respect he got from his father, and like the fear of him as a figure.
And it makes sense because the tattoo on his head is respect, and
Yeah,
the last shot of the movie is that tattoo.
yeah, the back of his head, and he kills the source of his fear, like some sort of Jordan Peterson analogy, and actually, it's the inverse of a Jordan Peterson analogy because he doesn't save his father; he kills him.
Yeah.
um, and he takes this child to you know ambiguously potentially have a better life somewhere, and I think that was my favorite of the three movies.
Yeah, I agree. So
Um,
then
yeah,
we move on to the third one.
yeah, this one was also really good. I think if I were to sort of order them, it would be two, three, and then one.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree. Yeah.
the third one follows Milo, who up to this point has only been portrayed as like really intimidating and scary in the first one, and he's confident in his he's a distributor of drugs, and he has a lot of money compared to all the other protagonists we've seen from the movies. um,
Right. Yeah.
and unlike the other two, this one only takes place across one day. The other ones
Yeah.
are multiple days. This one is one day, and it's his daughter's birthday, his daughter's 25th birthday.
Yes.
um,
Yeah.
which I thought was an interesting choice as well, because a lot more shit happens in this than in that one day than happens in the other two movies across their like several day time frame. Uh, and it's kind of revealed at the beginning of the movie that Milo is like attempting to deal with his like drug problem, because
Yeah.
I don't think they show him doing drugs in the first or second movie. but
I
it's like
don't think so. No.
he Tony Montana getting high on his own supply kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he it's like his daughter's birthday, and he's dealing with stress from he's also like, this is a kind of consistent thing from the other two movies as well, is that he likes cooking.
Yeah.
And in the
Yeah.
third movie he cooks food for all like 50 or like 60 guests for his daughter's birthday. um and he's like he's making like these like Serbian dishes, because he's like, well, he's Serbian.
Serbian.
Yeah. I don't know what I was trying to say there.
Yeah.
But
There's this early part where he's made food for his henchmen and they all get food poisoning.
yeah, and
Right.
then the specific thing that they ate, um the specific thing that they ate, there's a scene later on where he throws it all in the garbage before anyone can eat it at the birthday party, because he doesn't want anyone to get sick.
Yeah.
But like, he he meets up with these Albanian guys, and if, correct me if I'm wrong, but so first of all, Milo is played by the same guy that played Miroslav in Copenhagen Cowboy. Second, I'm pretty sure one of the two Albanian guys in this movie was Albanian Andrew Tate. If you remember that epic character we created for Copenhagen Cowboy.
Yeah. Okay.
The
Luann in this movie, I think, is who you're talking about.
no, that not that one. He's the one that needs to be translated for. Um, and it's like his associate that does the translating between Milo and this other Albanian guy. I'm pretty
Might
sure.
be.
I honestly can't
Let me look
remember.
it up, honestly. Yeah, so he's the translator guy that he was working with.
He was like the intermediary that could speak to Milo, because the other guy only spoke Albanian. The guy's name is literally Ramadan. The
Yeah.
the actor. And it says here he was in fact in Copenhagen Cowboy. So yeah, he was Albanian Andrew Tate.
Yeah. So
So that's two crossovers that we're doing here, I guess.
yeah, so like, I mean, Copenhagen Cowboy was basically Refn going back to his roots in, well,
In Danish cinema.
Copenhagen.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway, so he goes to meet his Albanian like drug contacts, and instead of giving him what he wanted, which was heroin to sell, they give him like ecstasy pills. And
Yes.
The Arab guy from the second movie, Muhammad, actually shows up in this movie as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And a bit of an Easter egg, I guess. He's wearing the golden necklace that they got from Kurt in the second movie. He's wearing it. In this one.
Yeah. I guess I didn't notice that. But
Yeah,
right.
There's a part earlier in the movie where he tries to. He's getting the ecstasy pills. What ends up happening is that Milo gives the ecstasy pills to Muhammad for him to sell to like a buyer that plans on buying the whole, like, I think it was like 10,000 pills or something like that. It was like a big, huge bundle of them.
Yeah.
As like, Muhammad sets up this deal where he's going to, sell them all in one go. And there's a part where he puts a bunch of like watches and like gold chains on the table, and Milo hands them back to him, and I was like, oh, I wonder if they're gonna have like Kurt's necklace there. But then I noticed in a scene later with Muhammad that he's actually wearing it, so that was neat. And so he gives Muhammad the ecstasy pills, and he's like, be back here in an hour and call me as soon as the deal is done.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, yep, I definitely will. And then he just doesn't call him. And it's like, oh my god. Every one of these movies has the exact same sort of setup where it's, the main character makes some sort of stupid mistake, and then they owe a bunch of money to somebody. And and it's kind of interesting seeing how each one of them handles owing money to people.
Right.
Because Frank kind of tries to put it off and run away and, you know, buy himself time and, you know, collect money from other people to get his debt paid off. And when Tawny owes money to the Duke, he immediately offers to to kill someone for him, but he's not that kind of person that would actually kill someone, except until he is when he kills the Duke later on. But the Duke really kind of deserved to die. So and then when these Albanian guys were really impatient because it was like the same day. They're like, "Where's the money?" Like, fucking hell, dude, he's had it for less than a day. He gives them like his watch as collateral until he has the money for them. And they basically are like, he tries to tell them the watch is worth like 70,000 kroner, but it's actually only worth, like, he says to me it's only worth 7,000 or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
So they take his watch, and he has the birthday party for his daughter where he cooked all the food, and as part of this deal with the Albanian guys, because he owes them money, they use his diner that he has. I think it's a diner or like a club or something, like a clubhouse. Yeah. They're like using his location as a place to facilitate like a deal where this Polish guy is selling this like 17-year-old girl. He's trying to sell her into like prostitution.
Yeah.
Classic Albanian Andrew Tate move right there, let me just say.
Well, this time it's Polish.
Yeah, Polish Andrew Tate, sure.
Yeah.
But the Albanian guy was there for that, so.
Yeah, and he tries to sell her to this like madam, basically.
Well, that's actually the woman he tries to sell her to is Jeanette, who was the woman that Tawny was supposed to kill at the end of the second movie. So that's another sort of connecting thread within these, is that she kind of took over operating that brothel that that Kurt ran after the second movie.
It's very like Bret Easton Ellis, in that like there's a bunch of different characters that are crossing over, but it's not really like a sequel per se. It's more of like within the same world this is all happening.
Right, you're just kind of seeing briefly what this person is up to now after their plot relevance in the earlier sequences of the story, kind of thing.
Yeah, and like they make this whole like hullabaloo about this girl definitely having her 18th birthday that day.
Yeah, which was obviously something they just made up on the spot. Because even the woman that they're trying to sell her to. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say she like spots it right away. This girl's underage.
Yeah,
and
the funny part was they're like, "Oh, her birthday's today," and she goes, "Really? Isn't that convenient?" Like she just knows they're bullshitting her.
Yeah, and she basically like he tries to offer like for 7,500. I think it's US dollars,
something like that. Yeah,
and she's just like, "Nope, I'm out of here." And you can see throughout this whole thing, Milo's having this like crisis. He keeps like looking back and forth at the girl, and he's just having this party with his daughter. The daughter, by the way, who he has to go back to the party, get food for the pimp and everyone because the Albanian guy is pressuring him to do that. And then the daughter, who, because her boyfriend has just had this conversation about going into business with her father, basically pressures her father into roping her in on the deal.
Yeah, just money and drugs and deals being made, you know, at her fucking 25th birthday.
And so he goes back and like he's seeing this girl who I think is American. I think it's the idea there. And is probably like seeing his daughter in her, and he's just totally conflicted. She eventually like tries to escape, and he drags her back in along with them. But then he watches the Polish dude like beat up on her, and he finally has enough and snaps and like kills him with a hammer. Well, he doesn't actually kill him until
Not
later.
yet. Yeah, he smashes him in the back of the head with a hammer twice.
Yeah, and he goes down, and then he waits for the Albanian to come back. And as soon as he turns his back, he does kill him.
Yeah, he kills that guy too. And it's kind of interesting seeing a more human side of the character of Milo, because in the first two movies he's literally like dangerous drug distributor that will have you killed. And it's like his last scene in the first movie is him just sitting there quietly as they're rolling out plastic on the ground to like kill Frank because he owes them money.
Yeah.
And then in the third one he very clearly has this conscience of like, you know, what they're doing to this young woman is wrong. And he fucking kills them for it. And
then he has to reach out to a friend of his, this bald badass.
Yeah,
who's probably my favorite character in that movie.
Yeah, he's actually the Radovan, I think is his name. He was the right hand man from the first movie.
Right. Okay, that's why he.
Yeah, they brought him back for the third movie, and it's like
he had gotten out of the life.
Yeah, and he made like a pizza joint or something. He was like running a pizza place or something like that. And, Milo asks him like, "Hey, can you help me? You know, I have a problem that I need handled." And he's just like, you know, I'm out of the criminal life. I don't want to let anyone drag me back into it. But then he kind of caves and he's like, "I'll do you this favor this one time, but don't ever ask me for a favor ever again." Basically, and while all this was going on, Milo had some other guy who was like a cop looking for Muhammad because he ran off with all those ecstasy pills. And they had captured him and brought him to Milo. And so Milo and Radovan are torturing, torturing. That's the right word. I was gonna rephrase that, and I was like, no, they were torturing him. They they like tie him up, and they're like, you know, where's the
enhanced
ecstasy?
Interrogating him.
Enhanced interrogation. They're basically like, you know, grilling him on where the ecstasy pills are, and Muhammad tells him like, you gave me a bag of 10,000 pieces of candy, like it wasn't actually drugs.
Yeah,
and this is actually proven to be correct when he had some of them in his pocket. And Milo forces him to eat a bunch of them to prove that they are indeed just candy. And he does pretty confidently, so one can assume like the Albanians were just ripping off Milo in an attempt to, you know, get him to owe them money, and then they could kind of encroach on his business. Like, I think that was their plan from the beginning.
Yeah.
But then Muhammad like threatens Milo, and then they just put him in the freezer and lock it. So I guess Muhammad dies in that freezer. Like, I guess he's just dead.
Yeah, because we don't see him again.
Yeah, he's not seen again. And then probably the most gruesome, like bone chilling, just disturbing sequence that Refn has ever put to film, ever, like in any of his movies. When they go back to Milo's diner, where the Albanian guy and the Polish guy are just dead on the floor, Radovan is just like, okay, we need plastic, and they roll plastic down on the floor, and he asks him like, oh, that pipe up on the ceiling there, is that pretty strong? And he's like, oh yeah, it's pretty strong. And they chain up the Polish guy's, or they're dragging the Polish guy out to like chain him up and hang him. And the Polish guy starts moving around, and they're like, oh shit, he's not dead. Milo's like,
oh wait,
Milo's like, I'll get it. And you just kind of like get this tracking shot of the camera following Milo over to where they pushed all the tables to, where he had the hammer. And then the camera follows him back as he just starts bashing the guy in the head on the ground.
Yeah, yeah.
It was like, oh my god. And they kind of hide the impact of the hammer hitting him by going around behind Milo's back, and there's like a pole going from the floor to the ceiling that the camera
Yeah,
also goes around to kind of cleverly conceal how they could do it in one take with him, swinging the hammer and just, missing, but it looks real.
yeah, and they do the same trick in the first one with the baseball bat and the bar,
Yeah, yeah. Um, and
and
yeah,
yeah,
they chain up this Polish guy. They're like hanging him by his feet, and
to
uh,
bring it back to the pig squealing analogy from the second movie.
yeah, they literally make the comparison to a pig being slaughtered because I think he tells he's like, oh, you've slaughtered a pig before, and then
Yeah,
they slit his throat and they put like a little plastic bin underneath him and they just drain his blood from his body, and he's like, oh, go get rid of that, and they dump it down the sink, and he's like, all right,
and if
bring it back over.
if you notice the blood they have, the fake blood is like kind of like the Giallo fake blood, where it looks like red paint, but like not like
Yes,
the dark red blood,
right,
which I thought was kind of a funny. It was probably a budgetary thing, but I thought it was kind of like darkly funny.
yeah, you don't really see blood of that bright red variety in movies anymore, so it was neat to see
Yeah,
that
no.
in a movie from like 2005.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, he like and then they gut him, and like all of his just
Yeah.
organs and stuff just fall into this tub,
And
and
he's like shoving it down the fucking drain.
he's shoving
Like,
it in like the garbage disposal in the sink.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
it was
And
just
you see this part of like the garbage disposal rumbling because it's having trouble getting it down the fucking drain.
yeah. And Radovan, while all this is happening, while this guy is like jamming this dude's guts and stuff
Entrails.
he, down a garbage disposal, Radovan comes in. He's like, "Do you have a saw?" He's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, it's behind the bar." And then he grabs the saw, and he's like, "Hey, where am I supposed to plug this in?" And he's like, "Oh, there's a plug right over there." It's like this casual like
Yeah.
they're just having like a casual conversation as if they aren't dismembering human remains.
Yeah.
It was crazy. It was like the
And
most. I had
and then it just basically hard cuts to the end where like you have all these like black trash bags that you know that all the body parts are in.
right, and Milo just goes back to his house, and
And
his
they're like burning all of the clothes and shit.
yeah, that was a very cold scene. That was just
Yeah.
crazy. It was like
It was
this was something I said.
I found it darkly comic.
There is a dark comedy to it as well because
Yeah.
on some level you had like you had gained a bit of respect for Milo. You're like, oh, good, he killed these people that were going to traffic this innocent young lady. But
Yeah.
then it's like you get back to what he actually is, which is a fucking psychopath
Yeah.
who can nonchalantly dismember a human body. And with most of Refn's movies with violence, it's always there's like a heightened reality kind of artistic aesthetic to it. There was
Yeah.
none of that in this sequence. It's
Yeah, it was besides the blood thing of it looking like kind of that red paint color, I would say.
yeah, the way that it was shot, I think this was kind of something Scorsese had said about after he shot a scene in Casino where a character is killed.
Yeah.
Where he was like before that he would kind of he would be a bit sort of stylistic with the violence. He's like from that moment on, whenever he would direct like murder, like that kind of violence, he would do it straight. That's kind of how I felt this sort of dismemberment scene was shot, very like clinically is a way to
Yeah.
put it. And I think that might make it the most disturbing scene that Refn has ever made, just because there was no heightened sort of European artistic sort of aesthetic going on with like he does with all of his other stuff. It was just very clinical, as I said.
Couple guys just doing the job they need to do. It's...
Yeah.
And then it ends with him just going home and saying hi to
His daughter, yeah. He just says hi to his daughter, and she goes to sleep.
She's like, what are you doing up so early? And he's like, just tough day at work. Yeah.
Yeah, and he just goes outside and he smokes a cigarette by his pool. and then the movie just ends.
In a way, he's like the least redeemable of like the three protagonists, but I think he was the most likable. I want to say,
that just speaks to the acting capabilities of old Zlatko over there, because I found his character very interesting to watch, because the movie, this was something that Simon had said to me earlier when we were discussing the Pusher trilogy, because he had also seen these movies.
Friend of the pod.
Simon. Yeah, another one. Just name dropping people that no one knows.
Yeah.
Simon he basically was saying that the third one was very much about the banality of evil kind of thing, where it mostly just follows Milo on just like, he's just cooking food, and it's just a day in the life of Milo.
Yeah.
It's the kind of shit that he does on a daily basis.
He's we didn't talk about it much, but there's like two. We mentioned it once, but there's like two scenes with Narcotics Anonymous.
Right. Yes.
That are I found hilarious.
They were pretty funny, because he's just like he is a drug distributor that is at a Narcotics Anonymous.
He's like, I'm just trying to make it one day at a time. I'm cooking dinner for my daughter's birthday. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. He's like, my business associates are really stressing me out though, and one part of my mind is like, man, if I just had a little bit of drugs, then this would all be a lot easier. And then they all hold hands, and they recite that thing about like, grant me the courage to something or other.
Serenity prayer,
I can't remember exactly how it was worded. The thing about knowing the difference between the things you can change and so
it's
on.
Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. It's the Serenity prayer, Alcoholics Anonymous thing. Yeah.
And then he took that to heart when he saw that he could make a change by murdering that Polish guy.
Yeah. So he's like. He's not a good guy, but like he's less bad than like because in the first movie he's this like representative of like the not
scary
even the
people
banality
you owe
of
money
evil,
to.
just like the fucking terrifying people that you owe money to, and by the end he's like the banality of evil, but also like everybody's got something of a conscience, sort of.
Right. Yeah. There is a human element to this guy.
Yeah.
He has things that he won't go along with, which apparently don't include dismembering human remains.
Yeah.
But yeah, he kind of has a similar thing going on to like Tony Soprano in The Sopranos, where it's kind of a point to be made that criminals do not benefit from like psychologists like talking to them about. They're not criminals, sociopaths specifically.
Yeah,
will actually not benefit from being talked to about like psychological problems and stuff. They will only internalize these sort of things and rationalize their continued misdeeds.
Yeah.
So like him, that whole scene of him like, oh, grant me the serenity and so on. It's just like that's immediately followed by him deciding to murder two people and then cut up their corpses.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even stay off narcotics. He starts doing heroin later in the movie.
Yeah, and there's one point that he's like, "Do you?" The Polish guy's like, "Hey, you want some coke?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll have some coke." And it's speed, and he's like, "What the fuck did you give me speed?" And it's like, "Bro, like, is there a difference?"
Yeah, I have no idea. It was just. It was a great scene. I like how the Polish guy also occasionally spoke English.
Yeah.
Like I think he was like the only character in any of those movies that spoke any English.
The madam spoke a bit of English when he
right in the context of that scene with the Polish guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Pusher 3 is probably my second favorite of the three, but as far as like characters go, I think Milo was the most entertaining protagonist.
Yeah, probably the most entertaining protagonist. I would say Tawny was definitely the most redeemable of the protagonists. Yeah. The most sympathetic one to me.
Yeah.
And Yeah, if you are a fan of Refn, or even if you haven't seen his movies, I would say the Pusher trilogy is a good introduction to his filmography.
Yeah, it's cool to see where he starts and how he goes from like the less confident but definitely talented filmmaker in Pusher to all the way to Pusher 3, where he's um, kind of really starting to develop this like clinical precision, but still has that like um, rough cinema verite style of the first movie.
Yeah,
So it's an interesting inflection point of showing him becoming more confident as a director. And the next movie he does after this is
Bronson, I think.
Bronson, yeah, or Valhalla, right? I think it's Bronson though.
Yeah, Bronson was 2008, and I think
Yeah,
Valhalla Rising was 2009,
I
if
think
I'm
you're
not
right. Yeah,
mistaken. But
yeah,
yeah, yeah, I know there are probably people out there that would call themselves fans of Refn that have only really seen his later work, which, not judging, that was me for a while.
yeah.
uh, I would say give his earlier work a shot, because the Pusher trilogy was definitely, um, not that I had low expectations, but it was better than I thought it would be.
Yeah,
That's what I think of it.
it's very different than like if you've only seen Drive and everything after that, but
Yeah.
you feel where he came from and where he's going, and
Hmm.
it's cool to see. I honestly preferred it to Copenhagen Cowboy, to be quite honest with you. So,
I agree. I I can see how Copenhagen Cowboy was returning to the roots of these sort of movies, but I think overall these ones did it better.
yeah, and with that, I think we can call this episode a close. We'll be back next week with. I am looking through our chats here to see if I remember.
Yeah,
Yeah, True Detective is the next thing we're going to be doing. So,
nice.
season
Looking
one.
forward to
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
All right. We'll talk next week. Thank you.
Yep. See you next time.